Uncle Sam's, let's go.
Hello everyone, it's your girl Miracle Sims and you're watching the GSL Talk Show. Tonight I'm chatting with Miss Debbie Baisden and she is a joy and delight, so stay tuned. Welcome back to the GSL Talk Show. I am here with the lovely Miss Debbie Baisden. How are you, ma'am?
I'm wonderful. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
No problem. I'm excited to have you here as well. Welcome to the GSL Talk Show.
Thank you. I love the name of your podcast. It is fantastic.
Oh. I greatly appreciate it. I know we kind of bonded earlier. I was letting you know that, the whole name thing and whatnot. But also, I just want to say that it seems like, I'm like excited for this conversation. So much positivity and whatnot is coming through the screen. So I definitely, I'm excited to learn more about you and your endeavors. Please, if you could tell us where you are and then just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm in North Carolina. I've been here for, I feel like forever. And I have 4 sons. They're all older teenagers. I know that yours is younger. So mine are 15 to 19. So it is pandemonium at all times. I'm a former school teacher who became a stay-at-home mom. And now I have 2 online businesses. So it kind of shifted over time.
Nice. I'm excited to learn about all of that. That sounds amazing. No wonder there's so much positivity. It's that good old Southern hospitality coming through. That's what it is.
That's
we over here pretty much neighbors, kind of. I'm over in Georgia, so
that's awesome.
That's why I got it.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, definitely want to learn all about that in regards to, home life, mom life, work life, becoming a housewife, all of that. Yeah. I love to hear all about it because I know people, people look down on housewives. I know there's a lot of stuff. So, that we places we can go with this conversation. So what got you here today in regards to your life and all that?
Yeah, I think, what I really am drawn to about your podcast is, the trifecta of God, sex, and love. I think that, I am a remarried widow. And so the perspective that I have now is not the perspective I had when I'm just like, living this vanilla life. Yeah, I had a bunch of kids, I had this whole litter of children around me. But it's basically such this mundane monotony, which I didn't know to appreciate the mundane monotony of it all until my husband died unexpectedly. And I thought the sex love part was officially out of my life. And even if that had been the case, God is more than enough. I think that he used my husband's tragedy for this refining of my faith. He's like, am I enough? Or were you idolizing your husband? So which is it? Who will you serve? Who is the top dog? And it was this moment of confrontation to say, wait a minute, have I been idolizing and depending on this man, all while convinced that, well, I'm self-sufficient and I'll just keep God on the shelf. If I need you, I'll let you know. But you're sitting there collecting dust because I'm independent. I don't need you. And God's like, okay, well, here we go. Here we go. We're going to see how self-sufficient you are. And so I look back now and I'm ashamed that my faith was so lukewarm. It's not that I didn't believe in God. It was just like, it's not what it was supposed to be. It's not how he designed our relationship to be, where he's like, I'm your everything. I'm your all in all. I will never leave or forsake, but you better believe I am allowed to take whoever I want out of your life. And so even though it's been a painful time for our 4 boys and me, there's been so many lessons I'm not sure I would have learned otherwise. And then to be given this second opportunity to love again, which I was not seeking, was not expecting, because I'm like, man, I'm in my 30s with a litter of children. Who's interested in that? Nobody. Well, again, because God's ways are not our ways. And he's like, hi, this is my planet. I'll spin it the way I want to be able to have the God, sex, love trifecta again is very sweet. Like, it's an undeserved blessing, but I see things differently that I didn't see in my first marriage. I'm like, no, this I want to show up for and serve. I really feel like that's what's missing from a lot. You know, we're like, oh, I want to be loved. I want to have sex, and I want God to, you know, do the things I want him to do, like a magic genie. Mm-hmm. When in reality, it's like, well, if you want to be like God, then you're here to serve. You're here to love others well and to be a blessing and to be faithful and obedient. So maybe that's like a really long answer to your short question.
Man, listen, we could probably end right there. You done came and dropped all the bombs and mics in one question, because like so much what you said is just very one needed. People, I feel like somebody needed to hear that. So whoever's listening to the sound of our voices today, as well as watching this, whatever the case is, I mean, I hope that just blessed you, because there's a lot of just confirming things of what you said. So I don't know if you probably don't know. So the interesting thing about what you shared about your story is, well, one, my mother and you have some things in common in regards to, she was married, and you know, my father actually passed before I was born, so they was only maybe married like a year or two. And the same year that, you know, I guess I was conceived, he passed in May. I was born in August. So I have that in common with your children, you know, and my mother has that in common with you in regards to losing a spouse and whatnot. You know, I am married and whatnot. We working on 7 years now and stuff. I can't even imagine to go through what you ladies, you know, have gone through and stuff. Even with being a quote unquote witness to my mom, I mean, but, you know, and never knowing my dad. Now, I guess it seems like your sons did have that opportunity to know their father, but then that's a whole different type of grief that they're dealing with. So that's a whole, you know, honestly, conversation all by itself when it comes to that part. And so that kind of resonated with me when you were speaking about all of that. And then again, the things that you learned along the way, like on one hand, I feel like when I met my husband, for example, I was just so careful to be like, you know what, Lord, I'm going to acknowledge you at every aspect of this, because I don't want to lose this. So I'm going to acknowledge you. And it was like, and I think perhaps maybe that's, you know, why we're still here today, and why, you know, because again, you know, God will use whatever it is to draw you near to him. And if it's getting in the way, your marriage, whatever the case is, I mean, we don't probably want to think about God in that aspect. You know, we don't want to think that, oh, he just took your husband just so you can get close to him. But I mean, you know, in the bigger scheme of things, you've already said that, you know, he was on the back burner for you. Like, he wasn't really, you know, he wasn't at the forefront of your, I guess, life and whatnot when it came to the hierarchy of your marriage and whatnot. And so things can happen and have multiple reasons, basically, is what I'm saying. So that resonated with me as well, with you being open and honest about that. I appreciate your transparency about all of this. And I know I mean, again, you dropped bombs on us already, but I know that there's, you know, it has to be more in regards to your whole journey, because like I said, I feel like there's so many places we could go. We could talk about the, you know, how are, you know, your children coping with it, and then your new husband and that process of, you know, finding love again. And just, I mean, girl, listen, we can go wherever you want to go at this point.
I love it. And I you know,
sound good to me.
I'm so sorry for what you and your mom have been through. I think, you know, that's really hard. I mean, just to hear you describe that, it's hard to comprehend the timeline, especially for you and for your mom. So I'm so sorry, because I feel like that's got to be this potpourri of emotions for both of you kind of over the years. And I kind of wonder that about my sons, who at the time were 4, 4, 7, and 8. I mean, these are little bodies, they're so undeveloped and they don't understand much. And so to have to know you are intentionally hurting your kids, that I had about 4 hours to prepare to tell them as I'm grappling with, my husband was short story found dead in the woods. And so it was like a 40-hour search with, dogs and all this wilderness detectives. It was very traumatic. It wasn't like a car crash or cancer. And so I'm trying to rapidly process, like, my husband is dead. My husband is dead. My husband is dead. And given just a few hours to, like, how do I break 4 hearts? Like, I was like having this internal conversation with the Lord going, let me carry it all. First, bring him back to life. This is all a fake movie. This isn't real. And the second thing is, like, put it all on my shoulders. I'll have the elephant on my chest for the rest of my days, but don't make me do this to my boys. He said no. But also in that moment, as I'm waiting for his body to be pulled out in a bag, I'm like, you know what, Lord, you allowed this. You're sovereign. This didn't take you by surprise. You're still seated on your throne. It may not be my way, but isn't that how all of our lives have evolved? The way our lives are now, we never would have predicted this as little children. And so I said, while I am jealous that you get to see Aaron's face and he gets to see the face of God, I am jealous, but you know what? I'm sold. I'm all in. I'm all yours. Like, I get it. I'm not in the driver's seat. You're the boss. So I'm opening up my palms to you, surrendering it all, because this is too much. I mean, I could barely inhale and exhale without it taking effort. And so once our sons got to the house after the 4 hours, just having to sit them down and physically force myself to say the words like, your dad is dead and you will never see him again this side of heaven. And I'm so sorry. If I could have prevented this, I would have. If your daddy could have prevented this, he would have. But God is still good. He is still faithful. And the cool thing is, your dad is still alive in heaven. So there's a fixed space between us. But if you follow and believe him, you will see him again forever. So this is a temporary thing, assuming that you love Jesus. And so they were very, very quiet. One kid was doing somersaults, which I thought was totally insane, but I learned that children grieve differently than adults. So at the time I thought that was disrespectful. And later people are like, no, kids are freaks. They never make sense in any way anyway. So, knowing that I had to shatter their hearts, I had to keep pivoting back to, but God allowed this, that it wasn't my plan, but in his sovereignty, this is how the divine countdown played out. And so I tried to use that opportunity to still fall apart and sob and ask kids how they're feeling, but also say, let's dive in to what God's truth says about heaven. Let's learn about what happens. We're going to spend most of our existence there and not here. What do you think he's doing right now? And what does the Bible say about heaven? Because it's real. This isn't some storybook for Sunday mornings, So I think there's been a lot of silver linings that we've tried to mine over the years, and to see them now the same way that you are a stable, functional, amazing woman. I think, my kids are still growing. They're 15 to 19 now, but so far, fingers crossed, they may need counseling in the future, but they seem to be highly functional. And when I ask them, how are you doing? Are you okay? Are you sad? And are you crying inside? They're like, Mom, I'm okay. I'm really okay. It's good. I know you're more upset than us, but we're okay. So it's a huge blessing. Again, like, God allows hardship, but he's so much bigger. He's like, I got you. I'll walk with this, walk with you all through this. So you're not alone.
Ooh, Lord. Okay. So here she go again. All right.
You're so funny. I love it.
Listen, okay. Well, first of all, it didn't even cross my mind to think about like how he passed. So I mean, I'm sorry to hear that it happened so horrifically. I don't know the exact details or anything like that, but to know even that part about being found in the woods, or you having to look at the body, or whatever the case is I can't even imagine. Like, if you want to share more about that, to fill in some blanks for us, feel free, but if not, I totally understand that you want to really, it's up to you.
Yeah, sure.
But I did kind of want to just, I guess, marinate on what you've said about like the you having to share that with your children, because that's a totally different experience. Because me, I never knew. You know what I'm saying? I just know, and that's it's weird for me because of course, people tell you about your dad, and they're saying all good things, and I'm sure not to be like he was probably had some bad things too, but nobody really talked to me about his bad qualities or nothing. So for the most part, it's always just like, oh, I had a good dad, and X, Y, and Z, and I'm just going off of other people's memories of him, and I never got a chance to meet him, so that for me it's just like a gap that's there that I kind of know. For example, okay, he liked to write songs and whatnot, and that's something that I do, so I feel like, okay, that's something that we shared and things, or people say I look like him or things like that, where it's like, okay, but for me it's a gap. But to have the kids that actually grew up with their dad for some years, and then that's a total different thing. So again, that's a whole nother conversation all by itself, because that's a totally different experience and whatnot. And then you as the mom having to share the news. Like, I mean, I have a little similar story in regards to like my when one of my uncles passed, and I told my sister, for whatever reason, that I don't know, maybe it's because the whole dad situation or whatnot, but I guess I handled grief in different ways as a kid or whatever, or with slow to respond, like I wasn't a crier or things like that. And so I told her, not knowing that she was going to burst out crying, and then now I'm hurt because I feel like I hurt her, so I can't even, that's the only thing I have remotely close to your situation. So if I felt that way about my sister, like I'm sure as a mom, like that's a whole. And then yeah, so this is a lot here. This is a lot, but at the same time, I think it's good. Like, I think one of the main questions I have for you as you were sharing this part is like, what made you immediately go to God and be like, I'm going to, accept your way? Because I know sometimes people will do the opposite, right? They'll point the finger at God and you took my man or whatever. Like, so what made you take the route of being like, your will be done, X, Y, and Z? Because I would say that's a rare choice, and whatnot. And so but I think that people need to lean into, people need to understand and do. So hopefully whatever you share right now will help people to do that more when it comes to things that we don't understand.
I think that I wish there was some like rule book, like how do you grieve? What is the right way to mourn? And I think everybody is so different. I know that the first time I saw his body in the casket, I could barely find words to comprehend everything. And I was sitting next to my brother, who I adore. I love, just amazing, amazing brother. And I could barely look, at the casket. I'm kind of like shielding my eyes because I couldn't absorb it. And I looked at my brother and I was like, how are you doing? And he was like, I'm mad at God. I'm mad. And I said, you know what? He can handle that. He can handle your anger. I can see why you are angry. And he said, are you angry? And I said, no, I'm not. And I said, God is so sweet to me. And I meant it as much then as I do today. I'm like, no way. He is always and only good. It's all that he is capable of being. That's his character. It's who he is. It's how he is. He's divine. He's holy. And so I said, but I'm not judging you. I'm not like, well, I'm better than you at grieving, because I think everybody is so different. I never hit any anger or doubting phases, but I think lots of people do. And that's totally normal. What I think helped me was I was raised in a home where my parents talked about Jesus like he was real. I knew verses before I could read and write. I was like, well, of course he's real, because my parents talk about this guy all the time and we're always going to church. And so I think I can probably take that for granted that I was raised up in the Lord, because I thought everybody was Christian when I was a kid. I thought everybody believed in God and was a good person. And so when this thing kind of swiped me at the ankles, I think the deal breaker was I was already anchored to the rock. I wasn't trying to build a foundation as the rain is pouring down. Like, oh, I hope this isn't sand. I hope this dries in time. I'm like, no, I was anchored way back. Not that this was my first hardship in life, but it's a big one. And so I think there had been other moments, you know, from birth on where there's some hardships. And are you going to lean in or are you going to turn your face away? And I'm like, that's dangerous to me, to turn my back on the creator. I'm like, I don't think that's how I'm going to live my life. So I think that having that foundation already dried, it's still hard. You're still kind of moving back and forth, but you're like, oh, that doesn't leave. He doesn't forsake. He's always faithful past, always be faithful in the future. So for me, I didn't have this, you know, what am I going to do? Because I was like, it's always if blank, then God, if blank, then God, whatever it is, then God. So to know that one of my deepest fears did become a reality, which we're like, oh no, your deepest fears never come true. They do, they can. I'm like, even if, then God. And so he's been very faithful to say, like, I have loved you with an everlasting love.
There's so much wisdom in that, honestly, because again, that's, but see, you said you've been reared, and so I guess what I'm receiving here overall, people, we talk about this all the time on GSL. It's just so important, the parenting aspect. Like, I know I joke about my son and all that type of stuff all the time, but I'm like, I just knew, for example, how important it is to instill the values that we want him to have, or things like that now. So yeah, I mean, there's another example, friends. Instill those things in your children. So I will say then, where did the disconnect come in when you feel like perhaps you might have been idolizing your husband and things like that? Because if you were rooted and grounded and whatnot, as you've said, and things like that. So where would you say that there was like where did the putting God on the back burner come from? Or like, how did that come to?
Yeah. And I don't even think I realized it's kind of the frog in the pot of water that is only slowly getting heated. The frog doesn't jump out the way the frog would if it were boiling hot. So I think it was a slow fade. I think I was distracted, and I can blame motherhood, because good grief, having 4 kids in 4 years was like zombie life. I didn't know what numbers on a clock meant. I lived in pajamas. I didn't know which way was up. So I think I was distracted. Again, this is a priority problem, distracted. So I'm like, yeah. My prayer time is rushed. My Bible reading is superficial, like check the box, you know, get it done. And I think ultimately I'm laying up treasures in the world. I'm like, oh, my husband's going to fill this hole in my life. You know, my kids are going to fill this hole in my life. You know, even going to like little Bible studies. I'm like, why were you even going to those Bible studies? Was it just for the free childcare and the buffet of food? Because that's what the South does. So I think I had blindly, because life was too easy, I think I had blindly drifted. And the second you get away from prayer and Bible study and worship, it sounds so simple, but that enough is the catastrophe. And it's that whole phrase of, you know, the enemy doesn't want you bad, he wants you busy. It's like, well, I'm just too busy. This isn't the season for me. And God's like, okay, well, we're going to get those priorities in check real quick.
Wow. And that's so true to that as well, because again, this whole idea of being lukewarm or getting into routines and things like that. I mean, hey, this is why I'm here today. I mean, I challenged myself to start taking out time to do daily Bible study, because the most that I would get back in the day was just looking at the Bible app and reading the Bible verse of the day, and I'd be like, okay, you know. But now that I've taken this, I start taking deep dives, and every morning I get up and I do what I call the juice, and it holds me accountable. But it's like I get up with the anticipation to hear something from the Lord every day and be able to share that, whatever it is. And it's been blowing my mind what he's shown me, and then the different things that has happened since then. It's like the first domino to everything. And Lord knows, I think back and be like, you know what, Lord, you've been telling me to study more for years. Who knows where I would be right now if I had did that years ago, what I'm doing today and stuff. And so it's just one of those things, like he will draw you near to him if you know, have that heart and mind willing to receive and whatnot. And hopefully it doesn't take a drastic measure, right, to get us back on track and stuff. But yeah, like, so, well, again, I appreciate the transparency. I just was wondering, you know.
I love it.
So then you say that at some point you become a stay-at-home mom, you say you got remarried. So, I mean, I know there's way more to this story that's going on. So where are we now with the story? And where would you like to take us?
Yeah. So after my husband's funeral had passed, because God is crazy. I'm like, you can never box him in. He is so unpredictable. It's like, okay, God, our choices are A, B, C, and D. And he's like, oh, please stop. You don't even know. That's not even on my list, but thanks for the suggestions. He worked in the craziest way, that much too quickly for friends and family to be supportive of. I started reconnecting with a friend of mine and a friend of my husband's named Jason. So I had known him 20 years. We had done church small group together. We had done life together. And ironically, Jason was in the woods looking for my husband when he was missing. So my husband's missing 40 hours. The police had called everybody out of the woods, stop looking for this guy because they're assuming the worst. And so his friend Jason was like, I will not. So he just stayed hidden, kept looking for his friend. And so it was weird how it's just kind of naturally, we kind of were already friends. And all of a sudden I'm like, why am I liking this guy? That is so creepy. He's one of my friends. He's my husband's friend. This is crazy. And he is having this same internal war of like, this is my friend's wife. This feels so wrong. But again, so many people had prayed. I know they were praying, as soon as they were like, oh, Debbie's husband is dead. He's in heaven. People were praying like, let her find love again. And maybe she'll have another husband and all these things. Well, imagine that God actually answers prayers, which people were like, oh, well, not yet. Like maybe answer her prayer in 10 years. He didn't work that way. And I think because I was seeking the Lord, I'm like, listen, at any cost, I want to be obedient to you. Enough of me trying to drive the boat. I'm not driving the boat. I'm in the back. So I'm like, you're in charge of my life. I want to grieve properly. I want to heal from this. I don't want to pacify pain. I'm not looking for a rebound. I never thought I would like anybody again, but God designed it where he wove our lives together. And, Jason was like, I love you. I love you. And it took me a while because I felt like I was cheating on my husband. And I am very loyal. I don't have a lot of good things about me, but I am very faithful. And so I felt like a mistress. I felt like this is wrong. Like you should not hug another man, because I had been so trained. I'd been married 11 years. My eyes, it's always eyes down, eyes down. Do not look at another man. It's not what you do. And so I had to keep reminding myself, like, you fulfilled the vow of till death do us part. There is no future with your husband. He is gone. You will never, it's not a divorce where maybe you'll reconcile. And so I had to reconcile in my mind, it's okay to move forward. I had my mother-in-law's blessing days after her son's funeral. She said, you are free to love again. You deserve it. It's okay. So the supportive in-laws, supportive friends, once they understood that God's timing was not what they wanted. And I'm like, well, bye. It's my life. And so now I'm this remarried widow that this man was willing to come in laterally and gain 4 kids and a wife all in one day, which is probably pretty stressful. And it's been amazing. So, we're coming up on our 9th anniversary, and it's just, again, I often refer to my husband, Jason, as Boaz, because I felt like Ruth. I mean, this is a little bit of a stretch because I'm not as awesome as Ruth, but she's this widowed person, and Boaz was this redeemer who was so kind to this widow. He treated her with much integrity. He didn't try to like swoop in and be a hero. He was like, oh yeah, go around the edges of the field and get the extras that they give to the widows. And so that's how Jason was. He didn't come in as a fixer. He was like, yeah, feel your pain. I understand you love 2 men. Of course, no problem. And how wild that he can tell my sons about their daddy, stories of them camping together that I would have never known. So he's saying, what my friend started, I will finish, and I want to finish it well. He's like, I know how Aaron was. I know his beliefs because he was one of the most godly men I've ever met. And so he said, I understand the line, and I will continue keeping this family where it should be, especially with the Lord. So it's been a very unexpected blessing to be married twice, and have your kids at your wedding. That's insane. So I definitely never would have predicted it, but God is, again, that goes back to God's sweetness of that. He's so compassionate and kind to us, though we don't deserve it.
First of all, was glory for the good outcome in regards to that. Because again, I'm sure a tragic story, kids, you, the friends, the family, everybody, and everything like that. And it's so funny when you were talking about the time limit. It seemed like it happened quick or whatnot. Met my husband the same day. I finally was like, you know what? I got to tell you the whole long story one day. But really, if I make the long story short real quick, basically, I can't make the long story. Well, I have to tell you that today then. But anyway, I met my husband like the same day that I was really just like letting go, like for sure letting go of my ex. Like the only thing is about the ex though was that we were done months prior. I just trying to hold on and like, well, maybe things get better. And then the day I finally let go, like, you know what, I'll try love again next year, whatever. We're done. Same day I meet my husband. So, hey, God can write whatever love story he want to write in whatever amount of time he want to write it. And
that's true.
He'll do it his way. And listen, you're going to stop talking about my friend because you done put down yourself like at least 2 times on here saying that you ain't this and you ain't that. I don't know. The Lord probably saying that none of that's true. I don't call myself what they call. I say I'm not a prophet liar, but I'm just saying that I don't know. My spirit wasn't agreeing. Both of them times you said, both those times you put yourself down talking about I'm not this and I'm not. I said, that don't even sound right. No. So I'm here to remind you in case you didn't know.
You're the best.
And yes, man. And honestly, it's good because I was wondering as well in regards to again, the husband coming in and whatnot, and not filling the shoes, but at the same time, taking the reins, X, Y, and Z. So it's interesting that it was a friend, and it's interesting that it was someone that actually knew your husband and things like that. So yeah, and he was able to, because I was going to ask like how did he feel, but you already shared that in regards to he's understanding that you're grieving, understanding the whole thing, obviously because he was there the whole time. So it's very interesting, very, very interesting. So I'm listening to this. I don't know. So where we going now? Then what happened?
It was and is still an adjustment. I think it takes years, this whole like blended family, not that he had kids, because that would have been a deal breaker. I got more kids than I can handle. So I was like, I'm not bringing in, I can't do that kind of blending. I'm just not capable. Other people can because they're amazing. But I think it just takes time, for kids to adjust. Like, you're not my dad. I mean, let's just call it what it is. And for him to learn, how do I parent? I wasn't here from day one of diapers and bottles. So he's, kind of feeling like he's fumbling around in the dark of, I don't really know what I'm doing. It's 4 all at once, and they're all so demanding and they're very loud. So I think that it's such an adjustment. And I think the blessing of having been a wife twice now, which again, I never would have asked for because I don't think that's God's perfect plan in an unfallen world, is I want to be a better wife. Like, I can't go back, when your elbows are on a casket, you have lots of moments of clarity of like, oh man, I picked a lot of fights, or I was so selfish, or I wasn't grateful. And you can't fix it. There is no apology. There's no counseling session. There's no, I'm going to be better. It's just done. And I'm glad that Aaron and I ended on a good note. Again, the goodness of God. And so I can now come into this new marriage going, wait a minute, I've got a deeper appreciation that you could be gone at any time. And I'm going to have to be okay with that. That God is still good, but how can I show up better? Because if I'm supposed to be like Jesus is down here on the earth washing feet. So how am I washing feet? And I'm not bowing down as some doormat of like, let me be your maid and caretaker. But like, I need a servant's heart, which I fail on hourly. But, I'm like, I have such a deeper appreciation of like, really make today matter, really make it significant, pour into the other person and be selfless, like pour out as much of God as possible into others, because I don't want to live this marriage with regret where I'm saying I should have done this. I could have done this. I knew better. So I think that's been another way that God's made lemonade from all of this, that he's like, yeah, step into this new one and be better, be kind, be loving. Because in this society, it's like, no, it's all about me. You better make me happy and you better do this for me. He's like, nope, you're here to die to self. So I'm a work in progress, but that's my goal, is die to self every day.
Well, listen, with you even talking about this and bringing this up, like for me, not to say my mind is blown, but it's like, for me, I'm like, you're just exuding so much wisdom on that other level right now, where I feel like some people may not even understand what you're talking about in regards to like the trust that you have for God and the transition and being okay with where God goes and all this stuff. Is like, because again, I feel like we question every aspect of that. It's like we as humans, we're like, oh, what do you mean God is controlling X, Y, and Z? What do you mean, oh, you lost this one husband and you got but this next one so quick? Or what do you mean? You know what I mean? Like people, I feel like I get it. You know what I'm saying? I get everything you're saying, because I'm like, this sounds like it's like a breath of fresh air right now to hear somebody else say this type of stuff. Because on one hand, you feel like you're crazy when you read the Bible and then you try to live accordingly and things like that. And this is what you get, is the wisdom that comes with that. It's that next level. So what would you say to those people that are like, not just say doubters, but like, they may not be there they may not be fully understanding where you're coming from. They're like, oh, maybe you didn't grieve alone. Oh, I don't know what people may be thinking, but I just feel like the world tells you the complete opposite in everything that you share today. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like what you just said. Me. The husband's gone. God did this to me. The whole thing. Like it's the complete opposite when you think about what the world presents as how you should act or do or believe or all that type of stuff. So I don't want to ask, like, how did you get to this place again? Because I mean, you've already said it was because it was, instilled as a child. But I mean, maybe you just had good ministry throughout, or maybe it was your studies throughout the years. Like, it's something that got you to this level of wisdom. Though.
I mean, I think, honestly, I think time does help, because I'm at almost 11 years. If you saw me those first few months, I was in this paralyzed fog. I was numb. I think God does insulate with shock at first to just preserve a person, but just the deepest of sorrows, the hardest valley where I was crying out without end. There was no end to the sobbing that I had. So I never want it to seem like, oh, and then day 2, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start leading a Bible study or anything like that. I was in the trenches of like, God is very far away. He was very silent. There was no like moving experience of like God being like, Debbie, I love you. I'm here for you. None of that. It was very quiet. And so I'm like, I just have to trust. This is what faith is. Faith is not seeing. And I think that it is hard to understand, when I look back and I'm like, how would someone who doesn't believe yet in the Lord, it's black and white. It's so polar opposite. And I can say that confidently because one of my kids does not believe in God. So I very much live with someone who's like, not for me, not true. Great, you're a Christian. I still make him go to church. But I'm like, you were raised in this home the same as everybody else. 3 kids believe in God, 1 doesn't. So again, it goes back to this free will. Everything about God and his kingdom is so upside down. It's always controversial. It never makes sense. It's like, no, me first. And he's like, no, die to self and wash feet. And so it doesn't make sense. It's like another language. So even trying to talk to my son about God, he's like, I can't see him. So I don't live that way. So I'll just, I'll live how I want to live, which is how most of the secular world is. And it doesn't make sense. I mean, when you're inside of a cave for so long, there is no light. And that's where you've put yourself into the cave. And, I think that's why we should be prayerful for the unbelievers, to say, like, Lord, help them to see the light, whether it comes as a candle in that cave or whether it's an explosive firecracker, however you want to do it. God, just shed your light on others through us, his people, so that more people do see, oh, this is the character of God, that he is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, all these things. It's all from him. None of it's me. I'm a hot mess. I'm always like under construction, but it's because of him that we live and move and have our being. But it was absolutely always feeling like the verge of imploding with pain, just immense pain that I would never wish on anybody. Death is on another level compared to other pains. But, I think he can use our valleys and trials for us to say, this is what made me cry out to God, whether it's day one of crying out to God or day 1 million of calling out to him.
Wow. Well, I mean, one, I'm going to definitely be keeping your son in prayer and whatnot. I mean, people, especially kids, man, it's like you go through the journey of, but I feel like it's just like what the Bible says, when you steal those things, train a child in the way they should go, it will depart from him. And he'll have those things he needs in those moments when he's making those crossroad decisions and whatnot. So I say, keep being a great mom. That it sound like you're being, hey, no, you going to church, you in my house, my rules, whatever you need to do to keep that established and whatnot. Because he'll go through his journey, and I'm sure all your kids will. All of us have. We'll go through our journeys, and with questions. I don't think there's anything wrong with asking the questions either. And who knows? Like, he might be the main one someday to be sharing his testimony of the whole thing and calling more people than you can imagine. So you never know, man. You never know. I believe that for y'all, because we can get discouraged when we're like, oh, what happened to the one? Why can't the one just fall in line? Right. I only have one. Listen, I only have one right now. And listen, I can't, so I can't imagine again your plight as the mother of four. Look, to God be the glory for you. So somehow you've become a stay-at-home mother in the midst of this. And then tell us about that real quick, because I know you kind of touched on the, not say servitude aspect, but a little bit, like, and I see more of the servitude with more of what you said, like the washing the feet, the being there, that type of thing. But what people have in their minds about housewives and all of that. So I don't know. You have anything to share with us about that today?
Yeah, I mean, I understand where people are coming from, and I'm a pretty opinionated, dominating type female. I have to kind of rein myself in because I'm so outspoken and sarcastic and inappropriate, all these things. So going from, teacher to stay-at-home mom, and then like my husband being a teacher and being gone, I'm like, I have to pay a light bill. How am I going to pay a light bill? And I was like, I'm not going back to the classroom because I don't like kids. I'm like, I love mine most of the time. But I'm like, I can't, after making this litter, I can't go back to 30 of them all day, every day. I'm not interested. I only like adults.
Like I said, it's litter. I can't. You funny.
Too many. It's like just this whole entourage of people always swarming. So I think, now that I kind of was like, what do I want to be when I grow up? I was like, I'm going to pursue this newfound passion of fitness and nutrition and helping other busy moms just look and feel their best, even if they're at home, whether stay-at-home mom or behind a desk, whatever it looks like. But having done different jobs over the years, which, I mean, mom as a job is maybe not the best title for it, but I'm like, there is no job that can compare to motherhood. It's harder than any brain surgery, rocket science. I am convinced that there is nothing where you're always thinking of other people outside of you all the time. And, you're coordinating all their schedules, all their lives, like, oh, we got to run errands, or I got to get you to school or to sports or whatever it is. That's our ministry. That's our mission field. And I think our society is like, no, just climb the corporate ladder and make a bunch of money and keep hustling. And I'm like, I think that's all, again, a distraction from what's most important. We're raising the future of these amazing beings that need us. We're designed as moms, to be nurturing and loving and soft. And so I think I try to clean up my house, but I am no doormat of I'm going to let someone walk all over me and like, oh, let me just cook casseroles at 6 o'clock. That's not going to happen. But I think when it's mutual respect, there is no power struggle. And I think people think submission is a power struggle. I'm like, yeah, but the Bible says submit to one another. And so when both people have the goal of how can I pour into you and help you and speak your love language, everybody's content because everybody's needs are being met. And ultimately, I like how God designed, the husband over the wife, over the children, which again, if you're not a lover of Jesus, that sounds crazy because again, it's like, oh, someone's dominating you and your boss. No, it means I don't have to be as responsible. I don't have to answer for the big problems in my house. That's somebody else's problem. So I'm like, hey, I'm in the free and clear. So that's kind of, the blessing of if marriage is done well with God, with sex, with love, if you've got this trifecta going of, you and your spouse and God, then there's harmony and there is no problem. There is no, well, this isn't fair or what about me? And so I think having done a final load of laundry for my late husband, which I didn't want to do. I made sure my mother-in-law, who was living with us for 2 weeks after he passed, I said, please don't touch the laundry. Please let me do the honor of washing this man's final load of clothes. And I waited because I didn't want it. Once it's done, it's not going to get dirty again and need to be washed. It was so significant to me holding these clothes that were dirty, then wet, then clean and dry. And do I put them back in this dresser? When you have that kind of perspective, suddenly doing laundry for my current husband is a treasure to me. And I understand if people are like, no, that's going back to being his little servant, not to me. To me, I'm joyfully serving the same way if I'm, fixing my kids' taco meat. I get to do this because if those kids were gone, I would absolutely miss cooking that taco meat, right? So my whole perspective is, what if today is the last day? Do I want to spend it making sure I'm getting served? Or it's like, yeah, I'll put your laundry in the hamper. I get to do that. And so it's a coming from a place of love where it's not expected or demanded of me. But I do understand the misunderstanding with submission and maybe how like housewives feel belittled or something. I'm like, that's the hardest job. If you don't think it's the hardest job, it's because you don't have kids.
Man, listen, see, she always, we just got to go because I can't keep doing this with you. So she took this housewife conversation and just really put it on a whole nother level when you talked about, again, the aspect of the last load and all. I'm like, hold on, wait, like, I wasn't ready for that one, but it is like, I don't really have any words, like, yes. And I think we all should probably live that way in regards to it could be the last day. And not just in regards to our life, but it could be the day when Christ cracks open the sky again, or whatever the case is. Like, we need to be living like that every day, and being on our jobs, because the job of motherhood, like you said, is a huge and important one. We just talked about how big of a impact it had on you in your life. Like, let's imagine for a moment if you weren't raised in the church and you didn't know Christ and you went through all of these things. Like, would we even be sitting here talking? Probably not. You know what I mean? Like, and that's how much of an impact motherhood, parenting, instilling values in your children, all this type of stuff has. that we make so light of. And you're right. I do believe that, we're very distracted with this idea of success and stuff. I thank God that my perspective has changed in regards to like what is success, or, and all this different type of stuff. Like, I've never felt so free as I feel now. And I get up. I mean, yeah, I have like a part-time job at the church now that the Lord just blessed me with it here in 2023. Because if people was tuning back into me, 2019, 2020, I was hustling from home, just whatever little stuff I could do online. And I was starting this and stuff like that. And that's all I was doing between 2019 to 2023, where the Lord just provided multiple times. I feel like it was just a fishing loaves. Miracles kept happening because it was like, I'm not working. You know what I'm saying? Able to do all the stuff. It's like, this is crazy. It's blowing my mind. I don't even want to go back to the other mindset of whatever I was doing before, because I'm enjoying this. If the Lord wants me to wake up every morning and do the juice and do the daily, do the weekly talk show, and somehow my bill's still gonna be paid, I'm cool with that, I'm like, I am happy here, Lord. I know. And then I'm like, I guess he's reminding me that there's other things to do, more goals to reach. And I'm like, okay, I'll do all that stuff too. But if you want me to stay here, I'm cool with this too. Because, it's just a whole different mindset when you, I guess, take on his values or take on his idea of success and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I know, but people that's listening, y'all know what I mean?
Yeah, that's obedience for you. That's
the whole thing. Yeah, and then you see the value of, you know what? I'm appreciating that I'm home. Honestly, our kid is usually with us, 90% of the time. Like, who could say that back in the day? You know what I mean? Even this whole thing that happened with the pandemic and whatnot, like, for some people it was a blessing, for some people it wasn't, but for me, I feel like it was a blessing because I was already transitioning with becoming a new mom in 2018. And, so it was like a lot of new stuff happening anyway. And then finding myself at home the whole time, in a time where I was kind of like, well, Lord, how am I going to make this happen? Because I can't work the way I used to, you know what I mean? And stuff like that. And then the next thing I know, I didn't have to worry about that,
That's
so
awesome.
It's just one of those. It's just one of those things. And I'm like, I don't know where God's going to take me in regards to, where things are going to go and stuff, but there's just so much peace with it. I'm like, hey, well, wherever you want to go. Do you want me to keep doing this? You want me to keep doing what we're doing? So that's a whole different, because I guess if you knew me years ago, I was always like striving and going and trying to reach the next thing, and, or trying to get to quote unquote success or whatever. And now I'm like, being able to do this, for example, is a sign of success to me, So that's growth. That's growth and wisdom that has come to me over the past few years, So that's why I say I get it in regards to, I totally understand, like, women or whoever. It's like, again, the world will tell us the complete opposite. Oh, woman, again, like you said, go get the job, go do this, get the bag, all this different type of stuff. And then where's your kid while you're doing that? You know what I mean? Like, the next generation, as you said. So, all right, well,
you got lots of wisdom. That's huge. All that you just shared. That's such obedience to him and such a shift, that you're trusting an unknown future to a known God. That's really impressive that you're helping so many people right here and now with what you're doing. That's huge.
It's because of y'all. Like, it blows my mind every time. Like, every time I talk to someone, it's like, how else would I have met you? You know what I'm saying? How else would I have met any of the other people? That, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to get the word out here about GSL and stuff, because I'm like, so many amazing people have been on this platform and talking and sharing their testimony and their stories and different things. Well, I'm like, people need to hear y'all, like, because this is amazing. Like, and God is doing just such a phenomenal work. I just think across the board, where it's just very interesting to me, like how we're all these big, like, this pieces of a big picture, and don't even realize it until, like, I guess maybe until we're in heaven, and then we're like, look at what happened with this.
Exactly.
So meeting you. That's how he got here. Wow. We'll high five him.
I love that. Yes.
High five him. be like, wow, see, and he listened to your story, and then your son went and ministered to the da-da-da. I told you.
Exactly. I love it. Yes.
So when it happened, you go ahead and be like, you know what, that doggone miracle did.
Yep. That's right. That's right. Yes.
Look, it's correctly from the Lord now. I know I can sit here and talk to you all day. I'm sure you will have some things to share with us in regards to some because not only so you got your businesses going, but then you wrote a book, right? Or am I wrong about that?
Well, I'm putting together words on paper. That's about what I'll say in that regard.
I done spoke the book up. Okay, my bad. You weren't ready to talk about the book.
Yeah, so that, I've told the Lord, I just want to be obedient to you. I don't want to stay in a place of fear. And so it's kind of this journey of like, feel the fear, do it anyway, put pen to paper. Fear. And we'll see what he does with it. I'm like, whatever, just get glorified and just let me get out of the way. So in the meantime, I do blog a lot about, grief and faith, and then, have these online health and nutrition businesses. So those are kind of the plates I'm spinning right now.
Well, look, we're going to see what the Lord do. I done spoken in advance. I guess you come on back when you publish your book. And
you're so sweet. I love it.
And everything like that. I mean, well, how can the people get with you and get in touch with you and things like that?
So I've got 3 different websites. People can kind of choose their own adventure. So one of them is long. It's DebbieWilkinsBaisden.com. So that's kind of the grief and faith writing. And then one of my businesses is called Mom Sanity, because all moms need sanity. We're all crazy. And so you can go to mymomsanity.com. And then I have my own fitness and nutrition business, which is fitwithdeb.com. So I'm kind of everywhere, online, social media, all that stuff.
Awesome, man. Listen, girl, listen, I don't know if you knew this, but I was on like a little fitness journey back in 2021, way back in
That's awesome.
And I kind of was filming the process. It was this guy, I don't know if y'all can collaborate or something, but Anointed Touch Health, Fitness and Beauty. Shout out to him. And we and I called it accountability, and we would check in every week, and I would tell him my progress and this, that, and the other. I kind of took a break, and I guess I'll be honest on here. See, y'all got me being silly and too honest now, but here it is. I took a break because my friends was like, we went to brunch one day, and I'm showing them the progress, and they're all like, oh, you didn't do nothing but pull up your hair. And I was like, you know what? I ain't gonna work out no more.
I'm so sorry.
Exactly like that, but it's something like that where I was like, and then I'm just seeing my pooch or whatever, like whatever. I want to just embrace but I think the thing is too with me, I don't think I had a goal, for example. I just was doing it, and it wasn't like I was trying to lose weight or, I didn't have no specific reason why I was doing it. I do feel like I have a pooch, but at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I've never been big outside of when I was pregnant. So, I mean, if my body changes finally in life, I mean, I should probably embrace it, and maybe I'm looking more like a woman now. I don't know, so we'll see. Maybe I done met you, and maybe I'm supposed to get back on fitness journey. I don't know. We'll see.
Slow and steady, it's like drink a cup of water, go for a short walk, the end, I'm all about like simplicity and not overhauling your life. So it's like you're on your own journey. When you're ready, and you get to be a grown up and decide what speed you want to go. So that's the beauty of it.
Well, listen, everybody else, be better than me and go check out her website.
You crack me up. I love it.
Be better than me. Listen, so y'all won't be walking around with pooches and looking great like Miss Debbie right here.
Right? You're sweet. You look fantastic. So we're all working to try to look like you.
Oh, here we go. Well, I mean, I don't know. Is there anything else you would like to share with us before we go?
I can't think of anything. I maybe I'll share my favorite Bible verse, which comes from Proverbs 31, which I know makes some people roll their eyes, but I love Proverbs 31:25. It's kind of the end of it where it says she can laugh at the days to come. So I hope that can be all of our themes, good and bad days, just to say like she can laugh at the days to come. But I just appreciate being able to be here and for you letting me just verbally vomit. So thank you.
No, I mean, hey, I truly appreciate all the vomit then, because it's been great. I hope everybody's been see, you got me making all the jokes now. I hope everybody's been laughing the vomit up, because it's been good. Even though the Bible say don't go back to the vomit again. I appreciate you coming this day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. You are welcome back anytime as well.
Thank you. It's a huge gift to me. So thank you.
Thank you so much for watching the GSL Talk Show, and thank you to Miss Debbie Baisden for sharing her journey and her story with us. I hope that you all are encouraged and inspired. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and check out her and her endeavors. Good night.